Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We're just going to pick up from where we left off. Before I continue on with the show, I wanted to just refresh the information that is being shared. The information that I share, any slides, pictures, news footage, of course, it's not mine. I'm just reacting to them. So, basically, we're just going to pick up from where we left off. And where we leaving off basically is whenever the chief of police of Uvalde, um, a few days back now, um, he was taking a very defensive posture, stance, if you will. Um, Normally, you don't really see someone that high ranking kind of, taking on that kind of position. If anything, they tend to be like not only like apologetic and empathetic to the situation and everything, because you know what's coming. It's going to be a lot of paperwork. It's going to be a lot of things that has already taken place, a lot of questions going around and stuff. And so you have to be professionally composed and ready for these hard to answer questions, even if you don't have answers. um and just maintain that steady type of thing. And if you being in that position, I'm expecting for you to say things like, say those keywords that's going to relax the public. Hey, we're going to be as transparent as possible. you know Things did not play out apparently the way that according to our training. Be open, admit things. See, this is the thing. This is my problem with law enforcement and leaders of law enforcement. We want to try to paint this perfect picture of our public servants. We want to say, well, what they say absolutely goes. You don't question authority. You don't question, this and that and so forth and everything. And if they done something, they must have had a reason, things like that. Um, they're human, just like we put too much pressure on our celebrities and wanting to um, call them influencers and different things like that. Um, Too much pressure. We forget that people are people, and people are going to do human things, and people are going to make mistakes, and they're going to get scared and everything else. So whenever you heard me criticizing um the lack of response, what I'm really criticizing is the time. Anybody in any combative situation, deadly force or no, is in a situation to where they're going to have to put themselves in harm's way to um, respond to any life-threatening emergency. You wouldn't be human if you were not scared. So this is not an issue of, uh, you put your fear aside. If anything, you take that fear, you turn it into something. That's why we have training, and we have training very often. And if you're not having training very often, then maybe you need to go back. This is a message to all those FTOs out there. Go back and look at what you are lacking, whether it's sensitivity training, um, de-escalation, um, heightened situations, felony stops versus, um, I don't even want to say routine, a normal traffic stop, daylight versus night. There's all kinds of trainings that you can constantly do. Shoot, no shoot scenarios, definitely. Um, and and like I said, in retraining and cultural training, you know, getting away from judging people by stereotypes, you know, judging people and situations by stereotypes. Shoot before you ask a question if they look like me, you know, versus, oh, we want to be, we want to talk this person down because now they look like you. And I'm just being real. Okay. This is elephant exposed. So if you get sensitive, Sorry, I'm gonna call it like it is. All right, so as we go through um, the next information I got for you guys, we're just going to um, see how, or to see, or to actually get a visual. Sorry, wrong one. To get a visual as to what the timeline looked like in this situation, guys. Okay, so as we can see, we have number one, circle number one, and then you have your key below it. And so it's giving you just a quick view as to what we're looking at. So number one, that's where the teacher propped open the door to initially call for 911. If you go from 1, 2, and just follow like that. So I'll just go down the timeline and you just find the depictions with the picture or in the picture. So number one, the teacher props open the door. And of course, when she sees a wreck, just like anybody else would, you call 911. Okay. Then he gets out, he begins to shoot. Ramos is the shooter's name. That's in number two, in the number 2 slot. And so 11:28 a.m. Okay. Number 3. Ramos begins to shoot at 2 people at the funeral home. Then about 11:31, he begins to shoot at the school. Okay. Number 5, school cop drives past Ramos where he's actually ducking. So the way that some media try to put this out, I hate the way that some of these media platforms try to do things, because they're speaking the truth, but they're leaving context out. So yes, the officer assigned to that school was not initially there. That's according to everybody. That seems to be a collaborating story. But when he got there, of course, the shooter sees him as well. So the first thing he's going to do is, get the heck out of view. So it wasn't his fault, the school resource officer's fault, that he missed him. He's just trying to get to the school. So let's not bang on the school resource officer so hard for that. So obviously, once the school resource officer passes Ramos, the shooter, then that's when Ramos go through the same door that we now know that the teacher did close, and she was expecting for the door to lock, because that's one of those doors that, like, when you close those doors, it's supposed to lock behind her. So this is not a thing of trying to find fault, like how some platforms, like I say again, would try to have you think, because they are going by the timeline, but at the same time, they're leaving context out to leave it to your imagination as to how the competence or the incompetence of people that's involved in this tragedy. Okay, so then of course Ramos enters into the school at about 11:33. He shoots, they saying, according to this, 100 rounds into the 2 classrooms. That's room 111 and 112. And it says 3 cops followed them by another 4, all arriving at about 11:35. And that's consistent with the timeline that I was alluding to in the first video. And then about 12:03, you have about 19 cops just standing by in the hallway. And here's what we're learning today. Of course, not everybody is I don't want you to think that law enforcement is just cowering in the hallway. No, let's be real. You got some officers that was trying to do what they were trained to do. They was wanting to go in and take on the suspect, because by policy and by training, that's what you do when you have an active shooter. But no, you had Mr. Big Draws in charge, and Mr. Big Draws in charge is stopping and refusing to let the officers go in. Now, with that being said, that's where all the investigation is centered around. That's where, you know, all the back and forth is coming from. So of course you get your barrage of 911 calls actually coming from within the school itself. SWAT shows up at about 12:15 in room 112. That's when one of the students was reporting and saying that it was still about 9 kids that was actually still alive. Then in room 111, a kid says he shot the door whenever he heard you know, movement, people still up. So that was about 12:26. And then the same kid calls again and says, please send police now. So now we're pushing 12:43. And then right at about 12:50, the classroom is breached by special weapons and tactics, and then they drop the suspect. Now, according to what I've looked up today, this the on-scene commander, he's not cooperating at all. Outside of his initial interview, everybody has this initial interview that they have that, you know, that was involved in any incident. So from what we're understanding now is that he is not cooperating. The chief of police, outside of the shared video that I just shared in the first one, he hasn't done anything. So now, or said anything more. So now this whole entire investigation is being headed up on the state side as well on the federal side. So a lot of non-cooperation. There's been a lot of deflection. There's been a lot of hiding. There's been just flat out lying. And then most of all, and this is the part that really gets me, is the politicizing of this. And that's coming from the governor as well as the senator. I forget what the governor name is. I want to say his name is Cooper or somebody like that. But because, guys, keep in mind, this is the state of Texas. Okay. And Texas has a very big reputation as far as Second Amendment they're just pro Second Amendment, and it's nothing wrong with that. Okay, by the way, let me say that it's nothing wrong with being prideful and exercising our constitutional right to bear arms. So that's fine. But it's about placement. It's about timing of it all too. Okay, there's a time and place for all these things. And for the NRA to continue on with their convention, whatever it is, that they call it, to me personally, it's done out of bad taste, poor taste. You know, that it's like, oh, so sorry for your loss, da 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 da. And then you got people like Ted Cruz that wants to sit up here and again, in very, very poor taste, try to deflect and water down um our victims' family situations and what they got to go through to this day, this very day. Families and are setting up, you know, homegoing services and different things like that. I mean, to me, it is not that important for you as the NRA to sit up there and hold a convention or something like that right after a massacre. Your priorities are messed up. And as far as people like your Ted Cruz and this governor to sit up there and then basically try to say, I can't quote him exactly, but I think the idea was this, how we combat mass shooters is by getting more guns, so to speak, to combat the bad. You combat with it with good shooters or whatever. I can't quote him exactly the way that he said it, but when I saw the highlight of that video, I didn't feel motivated to be like, yeah, you know, no. And so now you have, again, so now we are breaking down the the political approach to this. So now we're saying, so now, of course, the Republicans, the conservatives, the right hands, the far right, the extreme far right, it's, you know, have always had this whole fear-mongering thing amongst themselves and being like, they're going to take our guns and stuff. Nobody's going to take your guns, period. Okay, we have the right to bear arms. What people like myself, because I'm not a Democrat and I'm not a Republican, what people like myself are saying, even liberals and just people with common sense are saying, do something, put something in place, make it more difficult for these 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 17-year-olds, 16-year-olds, make it difficult for them. There is all kinds of things that you can do. A more stringent background check, interviews with the police department themselves. Make people tell you, okay, why would you want this weapon? Okay. Of course, you got platforms out there. They're going to use trigger words like, you know, weapons of war, AR, assault rifle. That's not what AR stands for, by the way. Okay, is armed light rifle. Armed light rifle. AR. It is not assault rifle. Okay, because people know that when you hear these trigger words, they jerk your emotions right away. These weapons of war. Okay, I'm gonna try to be quick with this. Anything that's an extension to your body, and we can break it down real basic and say that you even have some people that have registered their bodies as weapons. Okay, so from stone time to modern, you know, conventional weapons. Okay, all in everything. If you're talking combat, okay, everything and anything is a weapon. But when you hear it in the context of, you know, a media platform and stuff, you will hear these things, you know, weapons of war, weapons of war, weapons of war. Anything can be, including the person themselves, anything can be a weapon of war. We have to get an understanding that when we hear media, big platform media, their job is to not only bring you the news, but they also have to bring their ratings up. Me, this is just my platform, and I can pretty much just give it to you just as raw as we understand it, kind of like barbershop type talk here. All right. So let's not get so caught up in all the trigger words, whether it's someone on the far right trying to water down a situation and trying to get themselves plugged in to stay in political power or to get votes and so forth and everything, working their nerves, and then versus the other side that is saying, hey, let's get rid of stuff. Let's get rid of firearms. I don't agree with that either, because we all have the inherent right to defend ourselves. And as the world gets modern, so does your weapons. But if you are a responsible firearms owner and operator, we have no problems. I myself am a responsible firearm owner and operator. And throughout my family members, friends, and everything. So we're not going to demonize firearms. What we want is responsibility and accountability. And we want for people to be mature enough, trained enough to know when and when not to, and understand that when you do decide to pull the trigger with said firearms, that please understand you will be held accountable. Okay, period. And so I have no problem with voting for common sense laws about this. Okay, just like you did alcohol and smoking and everything else. Raise the age. That's the first step. The second step, if you happen to get caught, make these consequences so harsh and so strong. The very thought of anyone violating that law, it would just turn them off, period. That's your first step. So with that being said, I appreciate you guys hanging in there with me. I was going to do more, but I just want to end it like this. This is just again, I know that this is a very sensitive time. This is a very trying time, but just like how we did the honors of the massacre that happened up in Buffalo, just wanted to take out just a little bit more time to recognize the fallen of this tragedy that happened down in Uvalde, Texas. Here we have the two teachers and the students that have fallen victim to yet another senseless tragedy of just craziness. So all right, guys. Again, this is not a hard thing to do. And we should not be fighting each other tooth and nail over something that just should be just flat out common sense when it comes to just protecting our very own people. We are all humans. I don't care what side of the aisle you are representing and standing up for. It's time to come together. Something's just supposed to be just a human issue. And with that being said, guys, we'll talk to you later. Catch you on the other side.